This beat is going to drop in 4, 3, 2,
Hey, day
1.
29 is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we are talking about backups today. And we're wrapping up our defense in depth section. So, the final layer in that defense in depth is recovery in case everything else fails. So, when we talk about backups, normally we think of it in the context of deleting files and stuff like that. But recently, especially recently, ransomware is ultra prevalent, and backups are kind of your only recourse other than paying the ransom. So, when we think about cybersecurity, make sure disaster recovery and backups are part of that game plan. There's lots of reasons we need backups beyond intentional destruction, things like malware and ransomware. There's hardware failure, there's theft. Somebody could actually come in and steal a computer or a server, and come in over the wire and exfiltrate your data and then try to extort you for some money or sell it on the black market. There's, human error. People accidentally delete things all the time or change things. There's software errors. So, beyond the cybersecurity reasons, there's tons of reasons you should have good backups. When we start talking about picking backup solutions, really we need to decide on a couple of things. First up is, what do you back up? All critical data, right? If it's important to your business, you need to be backing it up. If it's important to you as an individual, back it up. The kind of general rule is you should be backing up anything that's worth more than a backup solution. So, in the case of a personal computer, you might be using something like Crash Plan. It's like $10 a month. You know, that's not very expensive for backing up a whole bunch of your data. It would take me a lot of time to recreate these kinds of videos or even just the photos I like to take. So paying a couple bucks a month to back up your home computer, easy decision. When you're a big business and you're growing, you need to figure out, okay, is it worth backing up 20 terabytes of B film, if you're an audio visual group, or or is it worth backing up 10 years of historical data for a finance group? You need to look at stuff like compliance frameworks and legal requirements for data retention to make sure your backups kind of align with that. And also, if you're a business, make sure you think of your restore time, right? So it's not just files you're backing up. You need to back up things like system state so you can do bare metal restores and all that stuff. So make sure that when you're choosing what to back up, it's in alignment with what you actually need. You don't have to just hit select all if you want to save some money, but you definitely need to put some thought into what you're backing up. Next up, you have to make sure that you understand how quickly um, your data changes, right? So when we talk about recovery point objective or RPO, we're talking about how far back can that backup be before it's not very helpful. If your business is doing thousands and hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands of transactions a day, going back a whole day is a lot of lost data. So you might be backing up more frequently. If you're mostly dealing with stuff that doesn't change all that often, maybe daily is fine. On some stuff, maybe weekly is fine, even if it just really doesn't change all that much. So understand how frequently you need to be taking backups for it to be useful to you. You need to understand how quickly you need that data back as decision point number three. So a lot of people go for really cheap cloud-based backup solutions, but when it comes time to restore their data, they realize that it's going to take days to download all that data over the wire. So your recovery time objective is critical in this solutioning because when you're talking about backups, it's really you're talking about your recovery ability. Like having a backup is only useful if you can restore it. So understanding how long it takes to restore your data, that plays directly into what you're backing up, the technology you're using to back it up, where you're backing it up to. Generally backing something up to a box right next to you is way faster than backing it up to the cloud from a recovery perspective. But if the building catches on fire, that box also is gone. So you have to balance those things out. And finally, you kind of have to think about your retention period. So, how long do you keep your backups for? There's some studies showing that the average company doesn't know they've even been breached for over 200 days. I think IBM said it was over 250 in their most recent report, not just 212 days. So, keeping data for a long time helps. And a year isn't really that long, but if you want to be able to restore before you were breached, which is a good idea often, so you can kind of check things, you need to make sure you're retaining data for that long. Similarly, there's some compliance frameworks that dictate minimum retention periods. There's some laws like SOX that require retention periods. So make sure that your retention periods are in alignment with your legal requirements, but also your business requirements. And remember, there are a bunch of things that people think are backups that totally aren't backups. Redundancy technology like RAID, where you have a bunch of disks that are in a configuration to be redundant with each other, those aren't backups. You can't restore data from them if something fails. They're there to keep uptime. So when we think about the CIA triad, right, we think about availability, RAID is an availability technology. It makes it so you can withstand a couple of hardware failures, no different than if you have redundant power supplies in your server. Things like data mirroring software, so like ZertoDR and DoubleTake, they're there to provide uptime. They're not necessarily backups because the replication is in real time. So if you get malware, it replicates immediately. And then there's built-in technologies, previous version shadow copies. Those are great for super convenient restorability, especially for end users and even sysadmins, right? You can right click, you hit previous versions, you grab the old thing. Those things are super good, but they're not separated from your actual data. So they don't meet the kind of qualification for a good backup. A good backup should be separate from the actual production data. And some malware is aware of this stuff. So it knows how to turn off those features. It knows how to wipe those files, things like that. So make sure that when you're designing your backup solutions, you're designing solutions that are following the 3-2-1 rule, right? 3 total copies of your data. One of them is production, 2 of them are backups, and one of those backups is offsite. So you want to make sure that kind of is in alignment with all of your solutions. All right, so that's day 29 of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, Defense in Depth wrapped up with backups and disaster recovery. Have a good day, everyone.